Well, hey everyone, Mitchell Beecher here with Be Kingdom Builders, and welcome to another episode of Daily Kingdom Growth, where we journey through the entire Bible in just 1 year. And today we're diving into a new book of the Bible, Numbers, chapters 1, 2, and 3. Congratulations for making it this far. Well done, good and faithful servant. Now, before you click away because you think it might just be a bunch of names and numbers and math, let me tell you, these chapters are really filled with some incredible lessons about God's care and his order and what he has planned, and even the plan for each of us. So please stick with me, and I promise you will see these verses in a whole new light. But before we begin, let's quickly recap where we left off. Leviticus ended, if you remember, with God's instructions about the year of Jubilee, a radical system of forgiveness and restoration, and his promise of blessings for obedience. Now, as we move into Numbers, the Israelites are still camped at Mount Sinai, but they're about to get organized and set out for the promised land. So let's dive in. Numbers 1 through 3. This episode is going to be quick and short. If you like math, you'll love the book of Numbers, and specifically these 3 chapters. If you don't, just pay attention, take notes like I did in my math class, and just to get enough information to pass the test. So Numbers chapter 1 starts with God instructing Moses to take the consensus of the Israelites, men aged 20 and older, and all those who are able to go to war. So very specific amount of people. Now, before we think this is just an ancient head count roll call, let's consider what this actually means. God is preparing his people for the journey ahead. He's not just counting numbers. I mean, God knows how many people there are, but because he knows everything. He's calling individuals by name. The total, 603,550 men. That is a staggering number and a testament to God's faithfulness to his promise to Abraham that his descendants would be as numerous as the stars. But here's the key. God knows, again, each of them by name. Just like he knew every individual at that camp, he knows you and me intimately. In fact, we see this in Luke chapter 12, verse 7. Jesus reminds us that even the hairs on our heads are numbered. How amazing is that? And here's another interesting detail. The Levites weren't included in the count. Why? Well, they were set apart for a special purpose, which we'll get to shortly. But for now, the consensus or the census teaches us that God values every person and that preparation is vital for his mission. Now, chapter 2 is all about the organization. So we got the numbers, chapter 1. Now let's organize them in chapter 2. God gave Moses specific instructions of how the Israelites should camp around the tabernacle. Okay, so picture this. At the very center of the tabernacle, God's dwelling place is among his people. Surrounding it are the Levites, followed by the 12 tribes arranged in a precise order. So Judah's tribe is positioned on the east side of the rising sun, symbolizing the leadership and praise. And each tribe had its banner, its place, and its purpose. So what is the big takeaway here? God's presence is central. The tabernacle, being at the heart of the camp, is a powerful reminder that our lives should revolve around him. It's also a lesson in community. Each tribe had its role, and together they reflected God's order and beauty, because God is a God of order and not chaos. So think about this. When viewed from above, it's fascinating. When viewed from above, the camp's arrangement resembled a cross. When you read the details, it resembled a cross. How cool and amazing is that? So Numbers 2, verse 2 sums it up. The Israelites are to camp around the tent of meeting some distance from it, each of them under their standard and holding the banners of their family. God's order isn't just practical, it's beautiful. So chapter 3 shifts the focus specifically to the Levites. So unlike the other tribes, the Levites were set apart to serve the tabernacle. They acted as substitutes for the firstborn sons of Israel, who originally belonged to God. The substitution points directly to Jesus, who became our ultimate substitute, offering his life so we could be redeemed. Numbers 3, verse 12 says, I have taken the Levites from among the Israelites in place of the first male offspring of every Israelite woman. The Levites are mine. Their duties included caring for the tabernacle and assisting the priest. This reminds us that serving God is both a privilege and a responsibility. Just as the Levites were called to serve, we are also called to serve in a unique way. 1 Peter 2:9 calls us to royal priesthood, set apart to declare God's praises. So the total number of Levites was around 22,000, nearly matching the number of firstborns. It's just a fun little side fact that I find fascinating. And in this detail, I think it just highlights God's precision and purpose in every aspect of his plan. Quick chapters. What are the key takeaways? Well, first, God values each individual. Second, he brings order to chaos, organizing his people into a plan and with a purpose. And finally, he calls us to serve him in our lives. So my challenge for you today is to reflect on how you can make God the center of your life. Just like the tabernacle was the center to the Israelite camp. What role has God given you to play in his kingdom? So thank you for joining me today. I know it was a quicker episode, but go back, read Numbers 1, 2, and 3 for a little bit more details that we did not have time to cover today. And as always, if this episode encouraged you, don't forget to like, share, comment, share with someone who needs to hear this. And don't miss tomorrow as we dive into Numbers 4, 5, and 6 and discover a beautiful blessing that God gives his people. And until then, keep growing in God's word and live boldly for him.